far too large to rightfully be called a sword. It was larger, thicker, heavier, and cruder than any normal blade. By all accounts, it was no more than a hulking mass of iron.
And then the Killdozer blazed through a bunch of different civilian homes and towns, killing about 10,000 people in Waterdeep. This has been the news from Level 12 Fighter Doc. And Lich Brill, what are you doing? What?
Oh, hey. Yeah, sorry about that. I've just been stabbing the editor goblin for the last 10 minutes. You see, I knew we were doing Knolls today, but I figured that we might be able to get Yeenoghu on the phone. Unfortunately, though, I can't seem to get it here. Let me just... he's nothing. He keeps crying and whimpering. I can't... God damn it. I can't seem to get him to do anything. You see, I was hoping that if he cried enough that he'd show up because he's the beast of butchery. But I guess the editor goblin doesn't want to make this the greatest ever recording, period. Piece of shit.
There's so much blood. Oh my god.
Oh, that's his kidneys. You ever see a goblin's kidneys? They're kind of bluish.
Welcome to DumpStat, everybody.
Howdy.
Oh my goodness.
Damn it, I did that last time.
You did.
Okay. So, welcome. We are talking today about Knolls. Knolls. And immediately I want to state the obvious. I get it. Some of you want to play Knolls.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the playable hyena people and you go, that is what I want in life.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, and sit down on Poppy's knee right now. Just sit on down. You're a furry and you need to stop. That's the episode, everybody. No, kidding. So... I actually did get a complaint by one of my friends. He's like, man, you take some shots of furries. I'm like, yeah, bro. What's up?
Oh, man.
I'm a lich. I'm literally the bag. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So today we are talking on this Natural Geographic about the strange hyena people that seem to eat level 1 parties for breakfast.
Yeah.
They are the Knolls. They are a ravaging minion race type thing that are stupid, savage, and violent. And this isn't just your normal, let's talk about a race episode. This is actually part of our villain series because we cannot talk about Knolls without talking about Yeenoghu. So we've decided to merge the two, and this will be villains, Yeenoghu and his Knolls. So I'm actually really excited. Doc, do you have any experience with the Knollish people?
So here's the deal. Knolls are used a lot in a homebrew sense because they're an interesting enemy that can be used against low levels. So I've used Gnolls before, but from a lore standpoint, I don't know a lot about them, genuinely. It's just like, I know how to use them. I've used them before. They're a fun enemy to run against players. But as far as, like, who are they? Why are they? Could you please not?
Right.
I know very little about them.
Well, I for one, can tell you right now that I've been using Gnolls a lot. I'm up to a 9th level party right now, and I'm still throwing Gnolls at them because they're part of my big obscene plot against them. However, I do agree with you that they are strange and kind of as dumb or complex as you want them to be.
Yeah.
They can be very, very simple. They're ravenous, hungry hyena people, full stop. They blow into a town, they kill everything, they beat and slay with toothy grins, and they laugh the whole time. They love inflicting suffering, and then they bounce. They don't need to be more complex than that. And if you're a DM and you look at that and you're like, hell yeah, that's all I need. That's all I need. Great. But I do think you're selling yourself a little bit short because their abyssal origins are actually kind of fun to play with. So Gnolls have a deep connection to the abyss. Their demon prince, Yeenoghu, is a 14-foot giant hyena-scarred gnoll thing. He's the beast of butchery. He hunts down his enemies and he kills them. He's not complex. thinks. He's actually the dumbest of the demon lords. Simply put, all he wants to do is tear people to shreds. A long time ago, your homeboy got on the material plane, started walking around, right? Killing things. It's one of his favorite things to do. If you want a big bad that is fully a melee combat thing, this is a good way to go. He goes on the material plane, starts hunting people. The remains of his kind of horrible kind of destruction that he left in his path, these little hyenas were attracted to it, and they started gobbling up the remains. Those were your first generation of gnolls, and ever since, they have been very connected to the kind of abyss. Now, if you're thinking demon hyenas, that's kind of where we're going with this.
Yeah.
That's a little silly, but it can be intimidating if done right. And that's what I'm here to do. I want to talk to you guys about how to use these things in a way that will intimidate your players and work towards your benefit. So, what is a Gnoll's best friend? Doc, what do you think it is?
The legs and or all of the body parts, including meat, of their enemies.
I like that. That's very close. His best friend is his undying hunger. So, fun fact.
That is actually fairly close.
That is very, very close. So, essentially, when a Knoll is created, they are not born. This ritual that I mentioned before about Yeenoghu traveling amongst the plane and making horrible remains behind him, little hyenas turning into Gnolls. Basically, Gnolls try to recreate that process. They slay things, hyenas are attracted to it, and then a Gnoll priest who is blessed by Yeenoghu will try to make this creature turn into a Gnoll. So, Gnolls suddenly have this pest thing where they can easily make more Gnolls because hyenas are easily attracted to them. Doesn't kind of matter where they are in the world. Probably savannas, but for some reason, Gnolls just get hyenas. That's just a fact of life. And other races know that. So these are ravenous raiders who are undyingly hungry from this demonic process in which they're born. Yeenoghu blesses them with this rage and hunger and spitefulness that they can't really break out of.
Yikes.
So suddenly, they are trapped in this fuel of pain and suffering. Where do they let all that anger out on and that hunger? Out
everybody
on
else.
Yes, on civilizations, society. Humans, dwarves, orcs, no one is safe. And they want to kill more so they can make more Gnolls. So suddenly you have this weird pest control problem because they're not taking things. That's the other thing. There are some early D&D concepts of Gnolls taking slaves, but they're not building anything. They might be saving you for later to eat, but they're not making temples. They're not making elaborate structures. They're not curing the common cold. Gnolls aren't smart like that. As a matter of fact, they're frankly quite dumb. They would rather do this evil bidding of complete and total savagery until they wipe out everything on Earth. Yeenoghu's ultimate plan is to kill everything. And that's it. It's not complicated. We're not doing a 3D chess. We're not trying to figure out the secret Illuminati codes. It is simply, I wish to eat and murder everyone. Make it so. And they do. So, Gnoll raids go something kind of like this. They're actually a little bit smart and tacticians. It's a fast kind of blitzkrieg attack, usually scouting out with scouts, seeing where they're weakest, and then just blunt force numbers into the wall. A little bit of a swarm, but they're able to flank different communities and attack them intensely to the point where a lot of dwarven clans have Gnoll precautions. You see, dwarves usually make things like magic items, and the last thing you need is a Gnoll with a magic item. So,
that's
while
fair.
Gnolls aren't going to build structures, they are going to take the essentials. Food, being your kids, and maybe if they see a piece of armor that looks nice, they'll put it on their head, and sometimes that piece of armor is magical if it's from a dwarf. And suddenly your issue is way the fuck worse. Now they have magic items, and they don't know how to use it, but Yeenoghu is willing to guide them as far as Yeenoghu knows. So suddenly you have these different clans and people looking at Gnolls going, shit, we need to wipe them out. And that's usually the dwarven plan. Dwarves will go, shit, there's Gnolls attacking our mines. Let's band together and just, nuke it from orbit. Let's make sure they don't come up. Now, in that regard, it's interesting. But there's also another level to this. You see, gnolls don't just attract other hyenas. They attract demons, okay?
Oh,
yeah.
That's lovely. These are good notes for me to take. Demons. Okay.
Demons.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
Right. So you can look at this in Volo's guide. They have a long explanation of what gnolls are, kind of longer than gnolls probably deserve. They're still not super complicated in lore. So, demons. Gnolls will sometimes be blessed with demons to help them out. Specific demons related to Yeenoghu, very bestial, savage things, even more savage than your average. And suddenly you have now the fabric of reality becoming weaker. The more gnolls means the more demons come through, meaning the portal to the abyss is wider and wider and wider, growing and growing and growing until finally Yeenoghu himself or another demon lord sees it and walks onto the material plane. And at that point, you have a high level campaign, baby, because things just shit the bed.
Well, and the thing is that for me, right, who knows very little about gnolls, they're very unassuming. I mean, frankly, like, I didn't know this on a meta level that, they help open up these kind of rifts between the material and whatever plane that demons walked through. So, like, why should characters think, oh, these bad people walking around might summon a demon soon? Like, that's not your typically average thought. So that seems to me like something that would easily fly under the radar for most players as well.
I think it's something that is very unassuming, because when you see hyena people, you kind of go cute. I mean, they're bad. They're just bad Ravengers. It's the fact that their abyssal origins and where they actually manifest from almost threaten the fabric of reality. Because in a very strange way, gnolls aren't from here. They're from a demon prince, specifically. They're made in his image. So suddenly you have this dichotomy of, you have a constantly spawning. I mean, if a lot of hyenas show up to some remains, that means more gnolls, which means that rift, that manifestation of the link between realities just becomes weaker, and things can get across. Very, very bad things. In my current campaign that I'm running right now, that unassuming thing happened. We had players go into a thing I called the Veiled Mist Forest, where basically the fey protections of this forest had dissipated. They had been destroyed by another evil entity, which allowed gnolls to take residence. My players could have killed the gnolls.
Could have.
But they decided to instead not, and kind of leave them be. Suddenly, the gnolls have grown every single session. I've rolled for more gnolls and more demons every single session, creating a larger and larger army and creating more demons. So suddenly, that little band of gnolls that were just bothering the people of this forest, now they're leaving the forest with demons and attacking surrounding countryside, farmland, townspeople, attacking people on the roads. And now you have these players who are merchants looking at it and go, fuck, these guys fuck up our bottom line. We don't have customers. They're dead. Not to mention the threat of gnolls has become increased, because one or two gnolls early levels hurt, but as you get higher, they're not that threatening. However, tons of gnolls with backup from demons that can turn invisible and do wild sorts of magic. And then you have Yeenoghu priest. The more priests you have, the more gnolls you can make, the more hyenas are attracted, and it's this constantly just spiraling, just big slope of decay and savagery, until finally you had what happened recently. My players realized we need to handle these gnolls. We just do. We do. We're getting to the point where the problem is terrible. We have an invader from another different plane of existence that we ignored, and this cancer has grown to the point that it's choking the life out of the very peoples of this countryside. People are dying.
Well, and some problems, like, if you're hunting down, like, for instance, one of your conspiracies that you often put up as a lich are often maniacal and careful and intricate plans, right? Knolls seem to be like a virus that just get bigger over time. So it's something where it's like, it may feel like that it's easy to leave alone and then we'll deal with it later while we're like hunting down these plot hooks and these certain things specifically that we need to do. But gnolls seem to be like almost equally as interesting in a different way, where it's like, hey, you can't let this problem get too big, right? Like, eventually, if you let too many Gnolls run around, then you're just going to have so many Gnolls that you can't deal with the problem anymore. It's too late. It's too far gone. So that's kind of an interesting idea of like maybe something that you could even make a mechanic that like, hey, the Gnoll problem is just getting bigger over time. Instead of running out of time, it's like, no, like you have to value if 10 Gnolls are too many, or if 100 Gnolls are too many, or if 1,000 Gnolls are too many.
Right. And frankly, for one, when I say that it came to a head, it really did. My players who decided to try to wipe out, to a certain extent, they found a Gnoll camp when they were passing by. And in earlier sessions, they would have avoided it.
Right.
Because you don't want to fight Gnolls. And swarms and with demons, it can get really bloody really fast. They're a melee heavy thing. They're not using magic. And then you also have witherlings, which are undead Gnolls that kind of manifest from their hunger to be undead but keep going. And then you have flesh gnawers and hunters, the different kind of forms of melee that they do upon you, and then they have their actual kind of chief taskmaster and maybe some other form of, maybe hags have gotten involved to help manipulate this army because they're very malleable, to be completely frank. So you might have a lawful evil presence there. There's a lot of things going on as this cancer grows, but they saw this camp and they said, no, we need to stop this. We need to actually go in there and make sure that we can actually be heroes and help the surrounding countryside. The problem was they went in kind of half-cocked. They didn't have the full party there. They didn't have much of a plan. They split the party in the battle. They didn't focus on all the Gnolls happening. They focused mainly on the priest, who I gave magic weapons because I'm a bad person. And what ended up happening was a total bloodbath. Everyone got hurt. Gnolls were killed on all sides, like gnashing and gnawing of teeth, claws, just a blood pit basically formed from this as Gnolls literally explode from the thunder wave that the bard was doing, and the fact that one of the Knoll priests, the priest of Yeenoghu, had a horn of blasting, which he just let loose on Gnolls and the party alike. So there's literally exploding bodies around and there's chaos. And once they were able to kill all these Gnolls, the kind of smoke cleared, Ferger, who I mentioned in an earlier episode, had died. He had been ripped to shreds and hand removed by this awful, awful thing. And by the way, he's fine now. He got revived, thank God.
Good.
Yay.
I'm glad to hear that,
Yeah, I mean, but they let a problem get so bad, and they're finally now starting to fix it, but it might be dawning on them that, shit, this could be too late. And suddenly now they're looking for other answers to the Knoll problem that they could try to figure out. Maybe get Yeenoghu's amulets. Maybe try to find out Yeenoghu's true name to control a demon. But as far as that goes, man, past that, it's looking bad. And unless you mount an army against them, we're at the point where we're at like DEFCON 5, like apocalypse levels of Gnolls. And of actual demons running about. Because I also did the mechanic where as the Gnolls spawn and get more Gnolls, the bigger the portal is, which means the thicker the demons that come through. We're not at Baylor level yet, but dude, we're close. And
that's really cool, though. I mean, like, it's terrifying, right? Like, I that's not something that I want to experience, but at the same time, it's from a game side, I kind of want to experience it. That's really interesting.
Well, and it's playing up the idea that demons are cancer. They are not of this material plane, and they shouldn't be here. They're a corrupting force in the universe, and when they arrive, people shit bad. Now, just kind of getting into more of a, I won't say fun, but we'll say interesting part of Gnolls, and especially Yeenoghu, is that Yeenoghu is actually seen more of not just a savagery type demon prince, but as a hunter. And he has this tendency to make expeditions, going out onto different planes to try to kill things. That's where the first Gnolls came from. It's a big part of the actual character. That raiding experience seems to be a huge part of their culture, quote unquote, along with laughing at the miseries of others and cooing over the miseries of others. There seems to be this joy. There's even a thing in Volo's guide that if a creature is in pain, a Gnoll is genuinely laughing about it. And in camp, to make each other laugh, they'll like stab themselves and like pretend to be hurt. And everyone chuckles.
Oh my god.
'Cause that's what level of just violence we're at.
Man, that's ridiculous.
Yeenoghu himself gets so much pleasure from causing fear and death and sorrow and despair from destroying others' beloved things and people. He is the beast of butchery. He is kind of dumb, but frankly, he's got a very simple MO. He's a 14-foot Knoll demon prince that causes a violent form of madness. His version of madness goes on, I get caught up in the flow of anger and trying to stoke others around me into forming an angry mob, all the way to I keep trophies from the bodies I have slain and turning them into adornments. So
it sounds like government.
Yes, it does, actually. He's the FBI. But, wow. Wouldn't that be funny if people took that clip and they're like, see, they're political now.
Oh, no.
You never said which side.
It's a joke. Okay.
Run away. But so you have this kind of propulsion of violence and death. And you can look up Yeenoghu's stats. I think he's a fun final boss for just basic melee combat. He uses a giant flail, and the cults around him are very fun to play as, because you might think that, Yeenoghu is worshipped strictly by Gnolls. However, while simple in practice, those who worship Yeenoghu can be humans who want to kind of have that Knoll excellence of violence, and they become Knoll-like. They become hungry, violent. Their teeth become filed into sharp points and claws, and they become hunched. His cultists are disgusting to look at, and it's representative of how violent and evil he is. He's the beast of butchery. Yeah. Now, something to keep in mind, Yeenoghu kind of becomes this fun demon prince that shows up in other modules. I mean, we've talked about last episode, Descent into Avernus. He's in there. He's, of course, in Out of the Abyss and in Mordenkainen Tomes of Foes. You can find his stat block in a lot of places. He's challenge rating 24, so he's a big bad, and he's not about spell casting. He's about using that multi-attack and that flail that can do random effects. Deals an extra 13 bludgeoning damage, do an extra little bit of constitution paralyzing kind of shenanigans, or just they have to succeed a wisdom saving throw or be affected by fusion spell for the rest of the turn. He hits you so hard you don't know where you're at. So when people look at other demon princes like the Demogorgon or Orcus, they might try to use that madness and that kind of magical presence that he manifests. And you can even use that with Zariel, what we talked about last episode. Yeenoghu is not that. He is a big brute. He is a hoodlum. He is not nice, and he is certainly, above all things, not going to be able to be talked to either. There's no negotiating with him. He is strictly blood, gore, violence, destroy.
I mean, you're talking about the most chaotic evil of all demons here, right? This is what I know about Yeenoghu, on top of what you already said, that this dude listens to nobody, right? Even though demons are all in it for themselves. There's a few of them that have some lines of thinking and reasoning. This is the gut reaction king of the demon horde, right? Good luck if you see Yeenoghu rolling that persuasion check, because I personally, if I was DMing Yeenoghu, I probably wouldn't even say it just has no effect, right? Yeenoghu is just, he can't be persuaded. This is his own madness and will is too intense for you to reason with him by any degree.
Impulsive. He is the murder hobo of murder hobos. He is the ultimate form of savage predatory violence. He's a predator in the sense that he is looking for prey to hunt, but he does not care about you. His entire lair shows these giant black spikes that he can manifest from the ground, where he impales his victims on it. Notice not eat. He's not into eating you. He's not trying to chew on you later on. He gives hunger to others so they can do violence, but he himself, frankly, is just into killing.
Yeah.
Bottom lines.
Yeah. He's a demon. He doesn't need to eat, really.
Right.
The spilled blood of his enemies is enough to quench his thirst and hunger for battle.
Now, the final thing I want to talk to you about is, while we could get into stats and we could go into other facets of earlier editions of Yeenoghu, there is a fun thing that has kind of permeated other editions, but has finally just been been said in 5th edition, which is the Horn King, Baphomet, the Lord of Minotaurs. He hates Yeenoghu, and Yeenoghu hates him.
That's fun.
They despise each other.
Yep.
Both of the more savage of the two, but they're different in certain ways. Yeenoghu is impulsive savagery of death, destruction, yada, 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 yada. Baphomet has that death, destruction bit, but because I am the superior predator, I'm the top of the food chain. It's a little bit different when you read that and you go, aren't they both just being savage for savage's sake? No, they're two high-functioning predators that want to be the top dog. They don't even remember why they hate each other, but the Beast of Butchery and the Horn King despise each other. And if you think a Minotaur isn't going to fuck up a Knoll or vice versa, you are sadly mistaken. They cannot be in the same room. Right. They will fight like fighting fish. They will destroy each other. It will be a bloodbath. And that's interesting because then you get, in Descend to Avernus, you get stats for Baphomet and you get stats for Yeenoghu. And you're like, oh, I wonder why. It's because they are fighting. They want to clash.
Right.
And a fight between these two is a fight for the dominance of that savagery title. If one overtakes the other, it's a fucked day. They're kind of evenly matched. One is smarter, that being Baphomet, but one is physically a little bit stronger, and that would be Yeenoghu. Yeenoghu has a little bit on him in just like sheer ferocity of physicality. Baphomet is going to try to dominate. Yeenoghu is just going to try to tear through. He's going to turn you into wet paper.
Baphomet has administration work on his CV, whereas Yeenoghu is just straight up just savage.
If you want to call administration work a maze. He's got a maze. So I want people, though, when they look at these two demon princes and they go, how do I play them? There's a lot of fun tidbits that you can look in the Monster Manual, but try to think, especially with Yeenoghu, that it is just a one-track mind of pure annihilation. There is nothing else. There's nothing inside him. There's no love. There's no joy. There's no anything like that. The only pleasure God is pain to others. And that is also instilled in the Gnolls. So you can make Gnolls that are basic bitches that stroll up, kill things, and leave, and you don't really need to talk about them. Or you could introduce a tide. A cancer that grows, that if you don't strike out immediately as a party, it is going to get far, 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 far worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I got.
Well, that's all really great and all, but so I mean, I don't want to dive into like the Knoll nitty gritty and stuff, but let's just talk practically real quick because, like I said, I know mechanics wise for those people that are wanting to know, what can I do with the Knoll, right? There's a couple of different varieties out there. But the main thing that I'll really touch on is, because Gnolls are pretty standard, is that Gnolls work in groups, right? Demons are pretty self-sufficient, but Gnolls are not demons. So what you've got to have is, when you're sending Gnolls out to fight, you've got to have a lot of them, right? You got to have, at least 5 of them attacking your party at a single time, because their whole thing is outmaneuvering and outnumbering people and tearing them to shreds as a group. Most of them have pack tactics and things as or rampage. I'm looking at the Knoll stat block right now. No, they don't have pack tactics.
No, they do
Wait
not.
a second.
They have a funny directive after death where they can get a last-minute hit on you.
Yes. Okay, that is the thing. Yeah. So never mind, they don't have pack tactics, but they still do work the best in groups because they usually have a lot of different weapons and things like that. So it's really best that if you have a Knoll, like, make sure that you're running them as a group against your party. You have like the Knoll hunters, which I love using because they're kind of like the assassins of the Gnolls. Like, if that wasn't as bad, like, the Knoll hunters are just that much more lethal. The Knoll Thane of Yeenoghu are kind of the clerics, except they're
just the priests. They make more Gnolls.
Right. And then you have the undead Gnolls, which are also really cool, but I'll let you discover those those yourself. Bottom line, if you're running a Knoll, run them in groups, because that's how they're best worked in a D&D campaign, at least from my understanding of playing them.
It's very hard to use them as NPCs. That's something I do want to say.
Don't do that to yourself.
The most I've seen is one of my players tried to speak with Gnolls to find out where one of the camps was by basically polymorphing and using tongues and speaking to one of them when he kind of snuck into their kind of area. And he was shocked to find that they are very one-tracked, which I thought was hilarious. He's like, why are they so dumb? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? That's the thing. They're hungry, man. That's it. Like, and they're not really, they're tactically smart in the fact that they are able to see the weaknesses and strike, but they've got a very one-track mind. There's only one other thing I want to mention to the masses. Do yourselves a favor. It was introduced in Descent into Avernus. It's spelled Krokektoeck. Crockett Tokek or something like that. Essentially, it's a giant mud skipper gnoll that has in his intestines other demons and gnolls that swims through the river Styx and is used as a traveling vehicle for Yeenoghu and his goons. I think that is a awesome set piece that if you were ignoring gnolls and then you tried to take them all down, having Yeenoghu show up out of a giant maw mud skipper gnoll that's gigantic is a badass introduction.
Absolutely.
In that case, that's what we got. That's what we have.
A little bit of a shorter episode today, but I mean, I enjoyed learning a lot more about gnolls. Now I'm excited to cause some mayhem in my world with them.
Some massacres, some violence. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Find us on all our social media platforms, and make sure to leave us a review, leave us a like, leave us a share, leave us a subscribe. Yeah, we love you very much. We're looking for miniatures. I'm actually trying to get a miniature for each villain that we do. I'm working on Zariel, and I'm going to get Yeenoghu, and I hope whatever next we do, I get a mini.
Oh, boy. I can't wait for pictures of those. I want to have a shelf.
Yeah, I'm excited. And if you want to just send me those, I'd love you for it, but we're not going to ask for that kind of handout quite yet.
Well, if you did do that, like I'm just saying, if you did do that, like at least message us first so that we can make some sort of arrangement.
Right.
I mean, that'd be sick if someone's like, hey, I paint these minis, and then like I'd sponsor the heck out of you. But but that's just an idea. So
well, either way, guys, thank you all for listening. Please make sure to do all the things I mentioned before and check us out with any other ideas on D&D Bedtime Stories. We have different ideas for topics all the time. We put up polls, and we are also playing around with the idea of t-shirts. So please make sure to keep an eye out for those.
Yeah, those workups are looking really cool. So I'm excited to release those.
So excited. Yeah. I am so fucking hype. So everybody, thank you all for listening and have a great day.
Don't get eaten by gnolls.
Wait, 1 second. I forgot our editor got one. I'm kicking him again. Shut up. Make him show up. Oh my God, he's here. Okay, we gotta go. Bye.
You've just been listening to DumpStat, a podcast presented by Horizon Kingdoms. Horizon Kingdoms is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition server that's free to play. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and join up on Discord to join in on a new adventure. For more DumpStat, be sure to find us on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe.